It had been 1 minute since the Panthers officially did nothing at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And I was 15 seconds into saying why I thought that was a terrible decision and they should have done something at the trade deadline. But now we are 24 hours into it, and I've done my best to turn the page.
Okay.
Are the Panthers ready to explode now that the trade deadline is passed?
How so?
There is an element of when you are the team that makes most sense to sell at the deadline, everybody's talking about it. We talked about it.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Insiders were talking about it. How many times did we hear a clip from Schefter or Graziano or Rappaport, right? All of these different insiders that are supposedly in the know that said, hey, it would make a lot of sense for the Panthers to sell. And then they'd start naming people. Right, Albert Breer listed of SI listed Brian Burns and Donte Jackson and Jeremy Chinn and all of these different Terrace Marshall Jr., Laviska Shenault was mentioned by name. All of these players were mentioned over and over and over again about possible deals at the deadline, possible scent packing. It's kind of a weight off your shoulders when you're one of those guys and then the trade deadline comes and goes. You don't have that dark cloud of, am I going to be here? Do they really want me? Hanging over your shoulders. The trade deadline has been hanging over this team for a while. I would say starting at like 0-3, when they were 0-3 or 0-4, you start to look around and go, yeah, this roster isn't really working, is it? It's not getting it done, is it? They're probably going to want to make some tweaks. Will I be one of those tweaks? It made a lot of sense for them to do a bunch of trades. So a bunch of trades were talked about a lot, and that hangs with you. These are humans. Nobody likes moving. Nobody. Yeah, I call up a buddy. You got to say, hey, I got a couch. The front door is small, so we got to take it out the back door and walk it around the side of the house. And don't worry, I'll give you a pizza and a couple beers. Come on, man. Please, can I borrow your truck while you're at it? Nobody likes to move.
Yeah. Can you grab my mail for me?
Yeah. Got to reroute all my mail. I got to go get a new license. Nobody likes to move. They don't want this, so that's hanging over them. And oh, by the way, you got to go make friends with a bunch of new coworkers, learn a new offense, learn a new coach, learn a new quarterback's tendencies, or learn a new defense, whatever it is. Nobody wants to move, and that's just hanging over them. So once that trade deadline comes and goes, my guess is they stayed on pins and needles till like 4:30.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe there was a trade that they filed at the last second and it took a while to track down your agent who tracks down you. Until like 4:30, they were probably on pins and needles. But then you can release all that tension. Then suddenly it's, all right, I'm a Panther. At least for this year, I'm a Panther. And I'm talking about the players who have job security, like, you know, they aren't going to be cut. Right? If you're the number 56 on the roster, you can't just sit back and go, I'm a Panther. It might be like, yeah, till Tuesday when we decide you're not. But I'm like Brian Burns. He's a Panther for the rest of the year. They're not cutting him, right? Jeremy Chinn, once he gets healthy, he's a Panther for the rest of the year. They're not cutting him. That tension gets to release. Miles Sanders, you're making too much money to be cut. You might be playing like maybe you should be, number 65 on a 53-man roster.
Yeah.
But you're making so much money, you're not going anywhere. That is good for the humans that are playing football, right? We all want to think about them like fantasy football players where you're just like, well, I'll trade him, I'll pick him up here, I'll put him down there, and it's not, they're humans, right? They want to be wanted, right? They want to be told they're valuable, appreciated, respected. There's no way there's no way Frank Reich could have gone up to Brian Burns before yesterday and said, hey, man, we respect and value everything you're doing. No, we don't want to give you a fair market extension, and also we might trade you. But, hey, other than that, we are all in on the Brian Burns. Today they can. Today they can go up to him and say, hey, listen, we had offers. We didn't want them. We wanted you. That's kind of motivational. Right, we talk about Actually, on this week's Pack Therapy podcast, which will be posted shortly for all of you to consume.
It's already up on YouTube.
Already up on YouTube, 99.9 The Fan. By the way, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, you have to go into your settings and just re-ask them to download them right away. I guess Apple did like a reset. So if you subscribe and you're used to them just popping up when there's a new one in your library, I guess they don't do that anymore. So you just have to go in there and ask to do it again. You have to go into your settings. You can unsubscribe, resubscribe, that kind of thing.
Do it with all of our podcasts.
Do it with all of them.
Best of the Drive.
Best
Panthers
of the
Playbook.
Drive. Exactly.
All of it.
Go all of our 99.9 The Fan podcast. I was just made aware of that today.
Okay.
So anyway, on the most recent Pack Therapy podcast, which features myself and NC State former quarterback Mike Glennon, who's a longtime NFL quarterback also, we talked about MJ Morris, the State quarterback, kind of playing for his job, right? The rest of this year is kind of an audition to be the future of NC State quarterbacking. That weighs on you, right? When you think your job's on the line, when you think like job security frees you up to just play football. The big names on the Panthers now that the trade deadline has passed, until the offseason, they're just playing football, and that might cut them loose a little bit, right? That might free them up to be a little bit more invested, be in the playbook a little more, work a little harder. And you might say, oh, they should have been doing that anyway. You're right, they should have, but they're human, right? If it were just numbers, we could play games on calculators. Can't do that. You have to take all of the emotion into account. They're not robots. So the trade deadline coming and going. I believed it was the smart franchise decision. I believe it's kind of negligent not to do it. I believe they should have traded players for picks. Whatever they could get. I talked about it yesterday. I have not changed my stance there. But I also will acknowledge that for the players, it's better now for their performance than it was when it was all hanging over them. It just takes something off of their mental plate. And in the NFL, you need to be 100% focused on playing. So sometimes you need to reverse that, right? Sometimes you need to take the thinking out of it. But even that's hard to do when you're thinking about your future and job security and everything else that goes into it. So we might see a little uptick in the Panthers. We might see a little uptick, right? Maybe Terrace Marshall Jr. makes a play.
If he plays more than 4 snaps.
Hey, 4 snaps, play those 4. Be a star in your role. Play those 4 snaps as good as anybody.
He caught a catch in one of those 4 snaps. That's efficient.
Just recently, there was I'm trying to think of where it was. It was Steve Young. Oh no, it was on The Athletic. There was a long article about Steve Young coaching his girls' flag football team. It's actually a pretty good article.
Okay.
But he talks about one of the lessons he learned in college or in his early years of the NFL, and he was passing along this lesson to the high school girls' flag football team that he's coaching. At one point in time, he got wildly frustrated backing up Joe Montana because he was backing up Joe Montana, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Montana's getting the reps. Joe Montana's getting the starts.
Yeah.
It's Joe Montana. And he ended up being on a plane and just sat next to a sports psychologist, just spark up a conversation, and they get to talking, and he levels with the guy. He goes, it is killing me. I'm getting 2 reps a practice. And he's like, I was a high draft pick. I was this in college. And he's like, it's really getting me. I'm flying home on weekends just to, unplug and have some fun. And the guy was like, well, you're thinking about it wrong. You're thinking I'm only getting 2 reps. What you should be thinking is these are going to be the greatest 2 reps anyone's ever seen in practice history. And he said that flipped something for me. Now it wasn't I was only getting 2 reps. It's that I'm going to judge myself on these 2 reps. I'm going to do everything I can on these 2 reps. If Terrace Marshall Jr. only gets 4 reps, gosh darn it, he should be trying to outplay his college teammates Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase on those 4 reps. Yeah, you're only getting 4 reps. Make him the greatest 4 reps of all time, Terrace Marshall Jr. They passed the trade deadline, and they wanted you around. You're a Panther for the rest of the season, at least. Go find a way to make something happen out of those 4 reps. That's the brevity. That's the looseness they can play with now post-trade deadline that they couldn't play with pre-trade deadline.